Welcome back to Aqua Reads, where we dive deep into the world of captivating short stories. I'm here to take you on another literary journey that'll leave you thinking long after the last word. So get comfortable, maybe grab a cup of tea, and let's begin.
SLIPKNIFE Part 1. The coin the brothel stank of sweat, cheap wine, and regret. Smells Gregory Ash had long since stopped noticing. He sat in his usual corner of the Red Lantern. A scarred table before him, a half-empty bottle at his elbow. The candlelight caught the grey threading through his dark hair, the deep lines carved into his face by 37 years of poor decisions. His hands, calloused and steady despite the drink, toyed with an empty glass. Another, love. Mira leaned against his shoulder, her perfume cutting through the brothel's miasma. Leave the bottle, she laughed. A practiced sound. You say that every night. And every night I have to carry you upstairs. Then stop asking questions you know the answers. 2. Gregory had been a knight once. The Ash family crest, a phoenix rising from crossed swords, used to mean something in the kingdom of Rolt. His grandfather had stood at King Aldric's right hand. His father had led cavalry charges that broke enemy lines like waves against rock. The name Ash was spoken with reverence in the halls of power. Then came the whispers. Treason, they said. Conspiracy. His father had questioned the king's new tax levies. Had spoken too loudly about the small folk starving while the royal coffers swelled. Within a month, the Ash estates were burning. Gregory had been 18. Away on patrol. When the soldiers came, they called it a pogrom later. The systematic elimination of a problematic noble house. His mother, his father, his sister Alara who'd been only 14 and dreamed of becoming a healer. All dead by morning. That was 19 years ago. Gregory had run, survived, learned to kill for coin instead of honor. The transition had been easier than it should have been. Gregory Ash. He looked up. A child stood before his table, perhaps 11 or 12 years old, with tangled brown hair and eyes too old for her face. She wore boys' clothes, threadbare and stained, and had her arms crossed like she was about to start a negotiation. Who's asking? Someone with coin. The girl pulled out a small pouch and dropped it on the table. It landed with a heavy clink. You're a SLIPKNIFE. Yeah? I need someone dead. Gregory's hand didn't move toward the pouch. Around them, the brothel continued its business. Laughter. Moans. The creak of floorboards overhead. No one paid them any mind. You're a child. And you're drunk. We all got our problems. She pulled out a thin cigarette from her pocket. The kind dockworkers smoked, and lit it with a match struck against his table. You gonna hear my offer or keep staring at me like I'm some fucking ghost? Gregory blinked. The girl's mouth would make a sailor blush. What's your name? Rebecca. You gonna take the job or not? I don't kill for children. Good thing I ain't asking you to kill one. She took a drag. Exhaled smoke through her nose. My father. Tholis Etching. He'll be at a funeral in Flythe 3 days from now. Lord somebody or other dropped dead. And all the royals and highborns are gathering to weep and scheme. He'll be there. Gregory knew the name. Tholis Etching had risen to prominence in Rolt's court over the past 5 years. A merchant's son who'd somehow secured land, title, and the king's favour. Rumour said he had a gift for knowing which way the wind was blowing. Why? Rebecca's jaw tightened. That's my business. Make it mine. Or find another SLIPKNIFE. For a moment, he thought she'd walk away. Instead, she pulled out a chair and sat, small legs dangling above the floor. The cigarette smouldered between her fingers. My mother was beautiful, she said, voice flat. Father married her when she was 16. Had me a year later. Then the king's sons saw her at some feast, you know about the princes. Gregory did. King Aldric's twin sons, Damon and Corvin, were infamous for their appetites. Women disappeared into their chambers and came out changed. If they came out at all. Father made a deal. Presented her to them like a gift. Said she was willing. That it was her honor to serve the royal house. Rebecca's hand shook slightly. She killed herself 2 months later. Threw herself from the tower. I was 9. The brothel noise seemed distant now. Gregory studied the girl's face. The hard set of her mouth. The way she refused to blink. After that, father got his lands. His title. His place at court. Built on her corpse. Gregory reached for the bottle. Poured himself a full glass. That's a heavy reason for a child to carry. I ain't a child no more. Not after that. She pushed the pouch closer. Open it. He did. Inside were dozens of gold chains. each one studded with jewels, emeralds, sapphires, rubies that caught the light. A fortune. He looked at her. Where did you get these? Stole them from father's study. He won't miss them for a few days. And by then it won't matter. She grinned, showing a gap in her teeth. So, we got a deal. Gregory should have said no. Should have sent her away. Finished his bottle. Found his way to Mira's bed and forgotten this conversation by morning. But something in the girl's eyes reminded him of Alara, his sister, who'd never gotten the chance to grow hard like this. I work alone. Not this time. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Then give me back my coin. And I'll find someone else. She held out her hand. Unflinching. They stared at each other across the table. Gregory broke first. You'll do exactly what I say. When I say it, you step out of line. I leave you wherever we are. Understand? Rebecca smiled. Understood. Part 2. The road they left rolled before dawn. Taking the eastern road toward Flythe, Gregory rode a stolen horse. A grey gelding he'd acquired from a stable owner who'd cheated at cards. Rebecca sat behind him, her small hands gripping his coat. The landscape rolled past in shades of brown and grey. Late autumn had stripped the trees bare, and frost crunched beneath the horses' hooves. The kingdoms of Rolt and Flythe were small, neighbouring territories that had avoided war through careful marriages and calculated alliances. Travel between them was common. The roads reasonably maintained. You ever been to Flythe? Rebecca asked. Once. Years ago. What's it like? Same as anywhere. Same shit. Different pile. She laughed. A sharp bark of sound. You always this cheerful? Gregory didn't answer. His head pounded from last night's wine, and his mouth tasted of regret. He'd strapped his weapons beneath his cloak. 2 knives at his belt, a short sword across his back, and a thin stiletto in his boot. The tools of his trade, cleaned and sharp. They rode in silence for an hour. The road wound through sparse forest, and Gregory's eyes constantly scanned the tree line. Bandits were common this far from the cities, and a man traveling with a child made an appealing target. So how do you become a slipknife? Rebecca asked. Long story. We got time. You talk a lot. You drink a lot. We all got our habits. She shifted behind him. Come on. I told you my story. Gregory sighed. I was a knight. Family got killed. I survived. Needed money. Started taking contracts. He paused. That's it. Bullshit. There's more. Why does it matter? 'Cause I'm stuck on this fucking horse with you for 3 days. And I'd like to know who I hired. Fair enough. Gregory guided the horse around a fallen branch. My family was noble. Knights for 3 generations. My father questioned the king's policies, and the king decided we were a problem. Sent soldiers in the night. They burned our estates. Killed everyone they could find. I was away, so I lived. The words came out mechanical. Rehearsed. After that, I couldn't go back. Couldn't be a knight. So I became what I could be. You ever think about revenge? Every day for the first 5 years. Then I got tired of thinking. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. That's sad. It's life. Still sad. Around midday, they stopped at a small inn called the Broken Wheel. Gregory paid for bread, cheese, and weak ale. And they ate in the common room. The innkeeper, a fat man with suspicious eyes, watched them from behind his counter. You 2 related? He asked. She's my niece, Gregory said, taking her to see family in Flythe. The innkeeper didn't look convinced, but he took Gregory's coin and left them alone. Rebecca tore into her bread like she hadn't eaten in days. When's the last time you had a real meal? Gregory asked. Yesterday. Maybe. She swallowed. Father keeps me fed enough. Wants me presentable for when he parades me out at feasts. Shows everyone his precious daughter. The words dripped venom. After this is done, what will you do? She shrugged. Dunno. Maybe join a crew. I'm good with my hands. And I can pick locks. You're 12. 11. Actually, she grinned. But I look older. Yeah? Gregory rubbed his temples. You need to be in school. Or with family. Not picking locks. You gonna lecture me on how to live after why? Oh, you just agreed to murder my father? He had no answer for that. They finished their meal and continued riding. The road grew rougher as they moved away from Rolt's heartland. And Gregory's paranoia increased. Twice he thought he saw movement in the trees, but nothing materialized. Then, as the sun began its descent, 4 men stepped into the road ahead. Gregory reined the horse to a stop. The men wore mismatched armor and carried weapons. Swords, axes, a crossbow, bandits. As he'd expected, they spread out, blocking the path. Afternoon, friend, the lead bandit said. He was tall, with a scar running down his cheek. That's a nice horse. Nice cloak, too. We have nothing of value, Gregory said calmly. We'll be the judges of that. You and the girl dismount. Slowly, Gregory's hand moved toward his sword. But the crossbowman raised his weapon. Don't be stupid. We just want your coin and your horse. You can walk to wherever you're going. Gregory, Rebecca whispered behind him. Hold on, he murmured. He dismounted. Hands visible, moving with deliberate slowness. The bandits relaxed slightly. Their first mistake. Gregory helped Rebecca down, positioning himself between her and the men. That's smart, Scarface said. Now hand over. Gregory moved. Part 3. The first blood his hand flashed to his belt, and the first knife caught Scarface in the throat before the man finished his sentence. Gregory was already moving as the body fell, closing the distance to the second bandit, a stocky man with an axe. The axe swung in a clumsy arc, and Gregory ducked beneath it, drawing his short sword as he rose. The blade punched through the man's armpit, between the gaps in his leather armor, and the bandit screamed. The crossbow bolt hissed past Gregory's ear, missing by inches. Third bandit was reloading, cranking the crossbow's mechanism with frantic hands. Gregory yanked his sword free and threw his second knife. It wasn't a killing throw. The blade caught the crossbowman in the shoulder, spinning him around. But it bought time. The fourth bandit, young, maybe 18, with a sword that looked too large for him, charged with a yell. Brave, but stupid. Gregory sidestepped the wild thrust and kicked the boy's knee. Something crunched, and the boy went down screaming. The crossbowman had recovered, was fumbling with the bolt. Gregory covered the distance in 3 strides and drove his sword through the man's chest. The body slumped, and suddenly the road was quiet except for the young bandit's whimpering. Please, the boy gasped, clutching his ruined knee. Please don't. Gregory's sword took him through the eye. Silence. Gregory wiped his blade on a dead man's cloak and sheathed it. His breathing was steady, heart rate barely elevated. This was muscle memory, the product of 2 decades killing for coin. He retrieved his knives, cleaned them, and turned to find Rebecca watching him with wide eyes. You all right? He asked. She nodded slowly. That was fast. Bandits are usually poorly trained. They rely on numbers and intimidation. He began searching the bodies, taking a few coins and a decent dagger. We need to move. More might be nearby. You killed them all. Yes, just like that. Gregory looked at her. This is what you hired me to do. Rebecca, if you're going to be sick, do it now so we can keep moving. But the girl wasn't sick. She was still watching the bodies with a kind of clinical interest. Father's harder to kill than bandits. Yeah, much harder. He'll be surrounded by guards. Other nobles, we'll need a plan. Good thing we got 3 days to make one. They rode until dark, then made camp off the road in a small clearing. Gregory built a fire while Rebecca gathered firewood, and they ate dried meat and hard bread in silence. The forest around them was alive with night sounds. Owls hooting, branches creaking, the distant howl of something that might have been a wolf. You don't seem bothered, Rebecca said eventually. By what? Killing them. Those bandits. Gregory poked the fire with a stick, sending sparks into the darkness. I stopped being bothered by killing a long time ago. When? After the first few times. After I realized that being bothered didn't change anything. He looked at her across the flames. You'll need to understand something. Once I kill your father, you can't take it back. He'll be dead, and you'll have to live with that. Are you sure this is what you want? Rebecca's face was hard in the firelight. I've lived with watching him smile and prosper after what he did to Mother. That's worse than any guilt I'll feel. All right then. They settled in for the night. Gregory took first watch, sitting with his back against a tree, hand on his sword. Rebecca curled up near the fire, wrapped in his spare cloak. Within minutes, she was asleep. Gregory watched her. She looked younger when she wasn't talking, wasn't putting on that tough facade. Just a child who'd had too much taken from her too soon. Like Ilara, like himself. The night passed slowly. Gregory's watch stretched until dawn. Rebecca never waking. He'd let her sleep. She'd need her strength for what was coming. Part 4. The Thistle and Crown. They reached the outskirts of Flythe on the second day. The kingdom was marginally larger than Rolt. with better roads and more frequent towns. The capital, also called Flythe, sprawled along a river, its stone walls grey against the autumn sky. Gregory had been here once before. 5 years ago, on a contract, a merchant who'd cheated the wrong people. He'd made it look like a heart attack, collected his coin, and left. The city hadn't changed much. Same narrow streets, same mixture of wealth and poverty pressed against each other. They stabled the horse at an inn on the eastern side. Gregory paid for a room with 2 beds and told the innkeeper they'd be staying 3 nights. "What brings you to Flythe?" the innkeeper asked. A woman with grey hair and shrewd eyes. "Family business," Gregory said. "Ah, funeral. Perhaps? Lord Hurrick's?" "That's right." The innkeeper nodded sympathetically. "Half the nobility's in town for it. Streets are packed. You'll want to watch your coin purse." "Appreciated." Their room was small but clean, with a window overlooking the street. Gregory dropped their bags and immediately began checking his weapons. Rebecca watched, then pulled out her stolen cigarette and lit it. "Those will kill you," Gregory said. "So will getting old. At least these taste good." He couldn't argue with that logic. "So what's the plan?" Rebecca asked, blowing smoke toward the window. "We need information. Where the funeral is being held. Where your father's staying. What his security looks like." Gregory laid out his knives on the bed, inspecting the edges. "I'll scout the locations tonight. Tomorrow, we acquire what we need." "What do we need?" "Armor, a disguise, and access." Rebecca grinned. "Sounds like fun." That evening, Gregory left Rebecca in the room with strict instructions to stay put. He'd locked the door from the outside, which she hadn't appreciated, but he wasn't taking chances. The streets of Flythe came alive after dark. Taverns spilling light and noise. Merchants closing up shop. Guards making their rounds in pairs. Gregory needed a drink and information, preferably in that order. He found both at the Thistle and Crown, a tavern near the market square. The common room was packed with travellers, merchants, and locals, all drinking and talking over each other. Gregory ordered whiskey and found a spot at the bar where he could watch the room. Quote, "Heard the princes are coming from Rolt." Quote, "Lord Hurrick's son is contesting the will." Quote, "Guards everywhere, like they expect an attack." Useful. Gregory nursed his drink and listened. The funeral would be held at Flythe's Grand Cathedral tomorrow at noon. Afterward, there'd be a feast at the castle for invited nobility. Tholis Etching, as a prominent lord from Rolt, would certainly be there. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world, friend." Gregory glanced over. The speaker was a woman in her 30s, with red hair and a soldier's build. She wore a sword at her hip and had the bearing of someone who knew how to use it. "Just thinking," Gregory said. "Well, you picked the right place for it. This whiskey certainly helps." She raised her glass. "Name's Kara. I'm with Lord Etching's retinue. Up from Rolt." Gregory's interest sharpened, but he kept his expression neutral. "Gregory, merchant, just passing through. Some timing, eh? Whole cities turned out for this funeral." Kara drank deeply. "Between you and me, I'll be glad when it's over. Lord Etching's been on edge since we arrived. Worried about bandits on the road, assassins in the shadows. Man sees threats everywhere. Can't be too careful." "True enough." She studied him. "You don't look like a merchant." "I get that a lot. You look like a soldier, or something similar." Gregory Smill. "Ed. Used to be. Long time ago." "Thought so. You've got the eyes." Kara finished her drink. "Well, stay safe out there, Gregory. City's full of dangerous people during times like these." "I'll keep that in mind." She left, and Gregory sat for another hour, gathering information. Tholis Etching was staying at the castle as a guest of the Flythe royal family. His guards numbered 6, plus Kara and a few others. Security would be tight at the funeral. Even tighter at the feast. A direct approach wouldn't work. He'd need a disguise. The next morning, Gregory explained the plan to Rebecca over breakfast. "There's a knight in Etching's retinue," he said. "Young, probably inexperienced. He'll be at the cathedral for the funeral. We subdue him, take his armor, and I walk into the feast wearing his colors. How do we subdue him without causing a scene? Leave that to me." Part 5. The taking of Steel. The Cathedral of Flythe was a massive stone structure that dominated the city center. Its spires reached toward grey clouds, and its bells tolled mournfully as nobles arrived for Lord Hurrick's funeral. Gregory and Rebecca watched from across the square, hidden in the crowd of common folk who'd come to gawk at the procession. "There," Gregory murmured. A young knight in Etching's colours, blue and silver, stood near the cathedral's side entrance. He looked bored, shifting his weight from foot to foot. His armour was well maintained but not ornate. Perfect. Stay here, Gregory told Rebecca. He moved through the crowd, angling toward the side entrance. The funeral was starting, which meant the guards would be focused on the interior. Gregory slipped into an alley that ran behind the cathedral. Counting doors, the knight would be just around the corner. Gregory waited. 5 minutes later, the knight appeared, lighting a pipe. He'd stepped away from his post, probably assuming no one would notice during the service. Mistake. Gregory emerged from the shadows. "Excuse me," he said, affecting a drunk slur. "Lost my way. Is the tavern?" The knight turned, annoyed. "Move along, citizen. This area's restricted." Gregory stumbled closer. The knight's hand moved toward his sword, but Gregory was already inside his guard, driving a fist into the man's solar plexus. Air whooshed from the knight's lungs, and Gregory caught him, dragging him back into the alley. The knight tried to reach his sword, but Gregory slammed his head against the wall. Once, twice. The body went limp. "Sorry about this," Gregory muttered. He stripped the armor quickly, efficiently. The knight was roughly his size, which made things easier. Gregory left the man in his underclothes, bound and gagged with strips torn from his own cloak. He'd wake in an hour or two with a headache, but he'd live. Gregory donned the armor piece by piece. The breastplate, the pauldrons, the gauntlets, the helmet last, its visor blocking part of his vision. He adjusted the sword belt and straightened. Just another guard in Etching's service. He found Rebecca where he'd left her. "You look ridiculous," she said. "I look like a knight." "Same thing," she grinned. "So now what?" "Now I go to the feast, you stay at the inn." "Bullshit, Rebecca. We're partners in this." "I'm coming." Gregory wanted to argue, but the cathedral bells were ringing. The funeral was ending. Nobles would be moving toward the castle soon. "Fine, but you're a servant. Stay quiet. Stay out of sight. And if anything goes wrong, you run." "Understood." "Understood." The feast was held in Flythe Castle's great hall, a vaulted chamber hung with tapestries and lit by hundreds of candles. Long tables groaned under the weight of food. Roasted meats, fresh bread, wheels of cheese. Nobles in their finest clothes mingled and talked, their voices echoing off stone walls. Gregory entered with a group of guards, nodding to the sentries at the door. His armor and colors granted him access. No questions asked. Inside, he scanned the room, searching. There, Tholis Etching stood near the head table, talking with a group of older lords. He was tall and handsome, with dark hair going grey at the temples. He smiled often, laughed at jokes, and looked every inch the successful nobleman. Gregory's hand tightened on his sword hilt. Rebecca had slipped in behind the servants bringing food. She wore a borrowed apron and kept her head down, but Gregory saw her moving along the walls, getting closer to Etching. The feast dragged on. Speeches were made. Tears offered. Gregory stayed near the walls, playing the dutiful guard. He watched Etching's movements, noting the 6 guards who never strayed far from their lord. Kara was there too, standing alert near the exit. This would need to be precise. An hour into the feast, Etching excused himself. He left the hall through a side door. 2 guards following. Gregory counted to 10, then followed, keeping his pace casual. The corridor beyond was empty except for the guards standing outside a door. "The privy." Gregory approached. "Lord Etching asked for his wine to be brought," he said, holding up an empty cup he'd grabbed from a servant. The guards looked uncertain. "We weren't told." "Do you want to tell him he can't have his wine?" They exchanged glances. One shrugged. "Make it quick." Gregory opened the door. Part 6. The contract fulfilled. Tholis Etching stood at the window, hands behind his back, gazing out at the city. He turned as Gregory entered. "I didn't ask for." Gregory's blade took him through the heart. The stiletto, thin and sharp, slid between ribs and into vital organs with practiced precision. Etching's eyes went wide, mouth opening in a silent gasp. "For the women you destroyed," Gregory whispered. "For Rebecca's mother." He twisted the blade and pulled it free. Etching crumpled, blood spreading across his fine doublet. His hands clutched at the wound, but it was already over. The light faded from his eyes within seconds. Gregory cleaned his blade, sheathed it, and stepped back into the corridor. Lord Etching asks not to be disturbed, he told the guards. He's praying. They nodded. And Gregory walked away. He'd made it 10 steps when someone screamed. The corridor erupted into chaos. Guards came running, shouting. Someone must have found the body. The door had swung open, revealing Etching's corpse. Lock down the castle. A voice roared. No one leaves. Gregory's heart rate kicked up. He was still wearing Etching's colors, which made him both invisible and suspect. He needed to move. Now, before someone started asking questions. He turned a corner and nearly collided with Kara. Gregory. She stared at him. Recognition dawning. What are you? Why are you wearing? He didn't let her finish. His fist caught her temple, and she dropped like a stone. He dragged her into an alcove, out of sight, then started running. The castle was a maze of corridors and staircases. Gregory took them at random, heading downward, looking for exits. Behind him, he heard guards organizing, heard the clatter of armor and weapons. Search every room. Check the guards. Make sure they're all accounted for. Gregory rounded a corner and came face to face with 3 soldiers. They looked at his armor, at the blood on his gauntlets. You, stop. Gregory drew his sword and charged. The fight was brutal and close. Gregory's first swing took the lead guard across the throat, arterial spray painting the walls. The second guard managed to block, but Gregory kicked his knee and followed with a thrust under the chin. The third guard, smarter, faster, got his sword up in time. Steel rang on steel. The guard was young, well-trained, and not exhausted from travel. Gregory parried a thrust, countered with a slash that caught the man's shoulder. Not deep enough. The guard pressed forward, forcing Gregory back. Gregory let himself stumble, feigning weakness. The guard took the bait, lunging for a killing blow. Gregory sidestepped and drove his blade through the gap in the man's armor. Under the arm. The body fell. Gregory kept moving. He found a servant's staircase and took it down, emerging in the kitchens. Servants scattered at the sight of a blood-covered knight, screaming. Gregory ignored them, found a door to the outside, and burst through into a courtyard. Alarm bells were ringing now. The castle was fully alerted. Gregory spotted Rebecca near the stables, still in her servant's apron. Their eyes met across the courtyard. Run, he shouted. Guards poured from the keep. Gregory counted 8. No. 10. Too many. He yanked off his helmet, breathing hard. The armor was slowing him down, but he didn't have time to remove it. The guards formed a semicircle, cutting off his escape. Their captain, a grizzled man with a scar across his nose, pointed his sword at Gregory. Surrender. There's nowhere to go. Gregory looked at Rebecca. She was moving toward the stables, toward the horses. Good. She'd get out. Come quietly, and you'll get a trial, the captain said. Gregory smiled. I don't believe in trials. He ran straight at them. The guards weren't expecting a frontal assault. Gregory crashed into their line like a battering ram, his sword swinging in wide arcs. He felt steel bite into flesh, heard screams, but he didn't stop. He was a whirlwind, all muscle memory and violence. Someone cut his arm. Another blade scraped across his breastplate. Gregory spun, his sword taking a guard across the face. And suddenly he was through the line. He sprinted for the stables. Rebecca had a horse ready, the same grey gelding they'd ridden from Rolt. Gregory hauled himself into the saddle, pulled Rebecca up behind him, and kicked the horse into a gallop. They burst through the courtyard gates, scattering pedestrians. Behind them, Gregory heard more shouts. The sound of pursuit. The streets of Flythe blurred past. Gregory guided the horse through narrow alleys, taking turns at random. He could hear hoofbeats behind them, but he didn't look back. Just forward. Always forward. They reached the eastern gate as it was closing. Gregory leaned forward, shouting at the horse, driving it faster. The gap was shrinking. 3 feet. 2 feet. They shot through with inches to spare. The gate slammed shut behind them, and suddenly they were on the open road, the city falling away behind. Gregory rode for an hour before slowing. His arm was bleeding, and his ribs felt cracked, but they'd escaped. The sun was setting, painting the road in shades of red and gold. You all right? He asked. Yeah, Rebecca said. Her arms were tight around his waist. You? I'll live. They rode in silence for a while. Eventually, Rebecca spoke. Thank you. Don't thank me. I was paid. Still, you kept your word. She paused. What now? Gregory thought about that. About the brothel waiting in Rolt. The bottle with his name on it. About this girl who'd hired him to kill her father. Who'd watched him fight his way out of a castle without flinching. I don't know, he said honestly. Can I travel with you? For a bit. He should say no. Should leave her in the next town. Let her find her own path. But something stopped him. Maybe the memory of Alara. Maybe just the exhaustion making him sentimental. For a bit, he agreed. They rode into the gathering darkness. Two survivors bound by blood and circumstance. Heading toward an uncertain future. Behind them, Flythe blazed with torches as the search continued. But they were already gone. Shadows on the road. Slipping away into legend. Epilogue. The Weight of Ash 3 weeks later. Gregory and Rebecca sat in a small tavern in the border territories between kingdoms. The contract was complete. The gold chains sold to a merchant who asked no questions. They had coin now. Enough to last months. Maybe a year if they were careful. Rebecca was learning to throw knives. Gregory had started teaching her. Partly to keep her occupied. Partly because she'd need to defend herself in the life she'd chosen. She was a fast learner. Hitting the target more often than not. I heard something, she said one evening. Setting down her practice knife. About the castle. After we left. What did you hear? They're saying it was a political assassination. That Flythe's nobles wanted father dead because of something he knew about the princes. She looked at him. They're not looking for us. They think it was someone else. Gregory poured himself a drink. Good. Does it bother you? That they'll never know the truth. The truth is overrated. Rebecca smiled. That gap-toothed grin that made her look her age. You're a cynic. And you're a child who smokes and swears like a sailor. We make a good team. Then, Gregory didn't disagree. They stayed in that tavern for another week. Resting. Planning their next move. Gregory was no closer to redemption. Still a slipknife. Still haunted by ghosts. But he had a purpose now beyond the bottom of a bottle. He'd given Rebecca her vengeance. And in doing so, had maybe found a small piece of his own humanity. It wasn't much, but it was something. One morning, a messenger arrived with news from Flythe. King Aldrich's sons, Princes Damon and Corvin, had been arrested. Someone had come forward with evidence of their crimes. Bribes. Testimonies. Documents. The case was being built. Slowly but surely. And whispers said the princes would face justice. Rebecca read the proclamation posted in the town square. And Gregory saw tears in her eyes for the first time. She'd be happy, Rebecca said quietly. Mother, that they'll pay too. Maybe, Gregory said. Maybe justice finds people in the end.
That's a wrap on today's story. If this tale pulled you in like it did me, smash that like button and subscribe for more short stories every week. What should read next? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep those pages turning. Quote.